Hello, my name is Olivia, and I'm speaking with Laurie Beavis today, who is the director at the Centre d'Art Daphne in Mouniang or Montreal. Welcome, Laurie.
Good morning. Good morning. I'll also say that Montreal in the Kanakahakan language is called Jojoga.
And it would be wonderful if you could please introduce yourself to those who are unfamiliar with you and your work.
Okay. My name is Laurie Beavis. I'm of both Mississauga, Michisagi, Anishinaabe, and settler descent. My settler family is Irish and Welsh, and I'm a citizen of Hiawatha First Nation at Rice Lake, Ontario. I live in Jojoga, and I've been here since 1999 again. So moving back and forth. I was raised in Peterborough, Ontario, and I find that there's this really interesting line that runs between Peterborough and Montreal, and people cross it and come through it all the time. And I'm one of those people who's ended up here. So I'm very happy to be in Montreal. And at the moment, since April, and an interesting time to move into a new job was just as Montreal was going into lockdown. I was hired as the executive director of Daphne, Centre d'Art Daphne, which is an Indigenous artist-run center located here in the city.
Wonderful. So thank you for speaking with me today. My first question for you is, how did Daphne emerge?
There's a sort of official history, and then there's the sort of the history that comes across as people tell you more and more of their stories about how it's originating stories, I guess, kind of. And in sort of the last few years, Hannah Claus, Nadia Mir, and Skawanati were coming together and doing making art together, and beading, making moccasins and things like that. And they also decided that it would be really interesting while they were doing that to also start to talk about interesting articles written by, or papers written by, or books or whatever by Indigenous authors and about art. And so, and in a fairly short amount of time, they also asked Carolyn Monet to come and be part of that group as well. And getting to be around 2018, they decided that this was, and particularly Hannah was very aware of the fact that there was more funding available, and this might be a really good time, because also through all of those other things, there was always the idea that the end goal would be, or an objective would be, to have an Indigenous artist-run center in Montreal. And so then the conditions seemed to start to be good in terms of, I know certainly for the Conseil d'Art the Council of Art for the Arts and Letters in Quebec started a new program called Recognition, which was aimed at arts funding for Indigenous artists and Indigenous organizations. So everything seemed to come together at that point. And then there's also creating, knowing, and sharing with the Canada Council. So, so they came together, incorporated, applied for special projects funding with Canada Council, and got funding for the first 4 years of first 4 exhibitions of the first year. And so then hired me in April of 2020, and we've just been sort of moving forward, and sort of, I've been working from home a lot, obviously, like everybody else, and we're just sort of moving forward now, and we're starting to look at spaces as things opened up a little bit, and we've just found a space. So we're going to be opening a storefront in January. So did that answer your question?
Yes, it did, definitely. So what is the mission of Daphne?
Okay, well, if you don't mind, I'm just going to read it, okay? And I should know it off by heart, and I will do that just eventually. But Centre d'Art Daphne is a nonprofit Indigenous artist-run center committed to serving the needs of emerging, mid-career, and established Indigenous artists through exhibitions and associated programming, workshops, residencies, and curatorial initiatives. Daphne encourages a culture of peace through critical, respectful exchange with our Indigenous and non-Indigenous peers and audiences. And really what we want to do is we just really felt that it was important to actually have an artist-run center with an Indigenous mandate and mission to show the work of Indigenous artists, particularly in the context of Quebec. Often, we have issues in this province with French, with language, French and English, and sometimes the sort of the French and English histories become so prominent that the original peoples are sort of forgotten, left to the side. And certainly in contemporary art conversations, there's because of the language issues, and some Indigenous groups only speak English and some only speak French, and it's hard for them to speak to each other. And so but what sort of is coming through that and the decisions that we made about what Daphne would show and how we would do this is that it's really important for Francophone Indigenous artists in particular, but not exclusively, to be part of the contemporary conversation about contemporary art. And so that's why we really, really want to focus on having, in the first 4 shows that we're having this year, 3 of the artists are Francophone. And so we really, and they're from outside of Montreal as well. So we thought that was really important to bring people into a large urban center to be part of the conversations that are happening and just start a new dialogue.
So as executive director, how would you describe your role at Daphne, and what are your biggest aspirations for the center?
My role, I'm doing a little bit of everything. I'm the only employee at the moment, of course, and I'm dealing with the government. I'm, this morning I was like sorting out insurance for our new space, getting us, helping us get a bank account, just do all of that sort of, day-to-day stuff. I'll probably be the one who's sweeping and shoveling and things like that as well for a little while. But I think as much as anything, I come from a background of arts education and art history, and I've been an independent curator for the last few years previous to this. And so I'm hoping that, and I've worked really hard to curate exhibitions of Indigenous artists. And so I feel very strongly that, I'm bringing all of my knowledge in. I've never been an arts administrator before, but I'm bringing all of the knowledge and all of the past experiences that I've had with, being on the board of Art Space in Peterborough and different places like that, and just sort of coming forward and moving the organization forward, sort of on a daily basis with the 4 co-founders who are very much a part of Daphne as well, and not so much on the day-to-day stuff, but have very strong opinions and ideas about what they want Daphne to be. And so I'm sort of working really hard to sort of fulfill my own expectation and theirs as well, so that we can all work as a group together and make this amazing thing that we're hoping, come forward and to keep going for years and years and years.
So speaking of amazing, Daphne is Mooniyang, or Montreal's first Indigenous artist-run center. So in your opinion, how will this transform the artistic landscape of Quebec?
Well, I think, again, as I said earlier, about the languages and about having artists, who are not necessarily based in Montreal, coming into the city and having exhibitions. We're really, really interested in having, starting new conversations with people about Indigenous art. We are also, there's a couple of things. In the first 4 exhibitions, we've got curators coming from across Canada to curate the exhibitions. So our idea is that these exhibitions will happen here. These curators have come from, I don't know, from as far away as Victoria, British Columbia to Montreal, but the idea that they're gaining knowledge of the people that are here, and that they will then you know, these same artists will then be shown in shows that are outside of Quebec also, which is really an important thing, because it's, again, it's widening the circle, and that's really good. We have, you know, we have lots of other plans. One of the really important things that we want to do is have solo shows. So, and lengthy, our idea is that the exhibitions will be sort of 10 to 12 weeks in length, and it's really important to give an artist a solo exhibition at all different levels of their careers as well. And so so we've got mid-career artists coming this year. We've got an emerging artist coming, but it's just going to be really interesting for them to have an exhibition that's only of their own work. And I think it's because that's important, because there's a recognition that's given with a solo show. There's still far too often the artists who are given shows are white European male artists. And so it's really important for an Indigenous artist and artists of color to be getting their own solo shows. You know, it's a really interesting marker in an artist's career as well. And it also gives, I think it gives the artist a chance to really, you know, to really think about what they want to have in the exhibition, and then how it also gives them a chance to sort of process that and what they're actually going to present. And then it also might often give them an idea of where they'll go to next from that point onwards. And so that's really, that was really, you know, that's something that actually Skalbanati wrote something about that in, I'm going to say 10 years ago perhaps, and you know, has just really felt like that was really, so that's an initiative that came from her, and I think it's really important. I don't know what else to say about that right now. You tell me some more. Ask me another question, or tell me whether I answered your question or not.
You definitely did, 100%.
Okay.
So Daphne has been described as an exhibition space, but also a community space. How is this vision for a multifunctional center being achieved?
Okay, well, we're going to do a lot of things in a relatively small space. The space that we've taken is, well, it's around 1,500 square feet, but as it is, the really important thing about Daphne is, and what we really, really want to see happen, is that it become the community center. We want it to be a place where we create community and we build relationships, and we build relationships with the people, with artists, but also with community members, Indigenous and non-Indigenous people. We're hoping that we've had our first online beading circle, and we're doing another one this week on the 17th. And our idea is that once we get all of this pandemic stuff over with, that we'll actually be able to have people come on a weekly basis, and we'll do beading circles, we'll do film screenings, we'll have artist talks, we'll talk about art, writing that is, you know, interesting. So sort of building conversations, building community. Another really important part of it is the idea of coming together over food, with the idea that feasts are really important, and we can sort of gather and cook and talk and eat it all at the same time, and when we're allowed to do all that kind of stuff again. The other part of that is building on the Thanksgiving address is really important, and also the Anishinaabe grandparent teachings as well are sort of those two things coming together. It's all about building relationships. It's relational protocols, coming together as one mind, coming together for the good of community and that sort of thing. So again, it all comes through, you know, good relations, visiting, sharing, and making art together, and eating, feasting together as well is all really important. And I think that one of the other things that I need to talk about is the origin of the name Daphne. Daphne comes from the artist Daphne Ojig, and Daphne Ojig was Ottawa Potawatomi, I think, and Anishinaabe, and she was from Manitoulin Island, and she She had a gallery, art studio, art space in Winnipeg in the early 1970s. And she really instigated a lot of artists coming together. And they would come and they would, you know, she ran an art store or warehouse or something like that. And she was really, she really pulled artists together, and she organized, you know, she was the, you know, she was the one woman in the, you know, the Indian group of seven. And she really, somebody was just telling me a story about how, you know, she pulled all those men together and she told them, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to get shows, and you know, we're going to show art. And that was really important to her. But she also, she was so encouraging of artists. She was so encouraging. She was a great teacher as well. She, you know, she was a great artist as well. You know, she really, she just, you know, put herself and her work and the idea of Indigenous art out there. And so I think that was, you know, that's where the name comes from, is the idea that, you know, we're going to be a center where people can come, and they can make art together. We'll do workshops, we'll, you know, do all different kinds of things. We'll show art by artists, and then we'll just like sort of move out into the community, and people can come and see us, and just make it a really strong space that hopefully will just like keep going and building and you know, going on for a long time.
Definitely, that sounds wonderful. So GRASAC members are committed to enacting Indigenous sovereignty and cultural recovery and recuperation in their work. And I imagine the center shares these commitments as well. So how do you see sovereignty and cultural recuperation coming into being at the center?
Well, I think that one of the things that, and again, this comes out of the curatorial work that I've done in the past too, but also very much, I think the ethic of Daphne is that, you know, people need to be able to see themselves in the art and in their experience. They need to be, an artist need to represent themselves in a way that they see themselves and that others can see them as well. I think that there's so much in contemporary Indigenous art right now that is really galvanizing, in that they're, you know, people are talking about social and political issues that are important. You know, the whole issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. You know, it comes through in the art, and I think it's an opportunity. Art is always an opportunity to tell the stories, to tell the history, and to tell, you know, talk about the politics and the issues. And I think that's really, you know, art does that thing, right? It sort of, I don't want to say it softens it, but it also, it makes it more accessible. That's a better way to think about it. And I think that that's really important. And I think that that's, you know, I think that's what we need to get the art up on the walls, or project it, or install it, or have people do a performance pieces about it. But I think it's really, you know, it's important for people to sort of see and gain a better understanding, and then also be in a position where they can talk to the artist, they can talk to each other, they can talk amongst themselves, and we can talk to each other about what the artist is attempting to do. And we also want it to be a space where people just feel really comfortable coming in. You know, it's a big barrier to walk into an art gallery, and I just, you know, we really just want it, the intention of it to be community based, and so that people just feel that they can take some ownership of this space. And I think that's really important. And you know, how it aligns with GRASAC is that just, you know, the accessibility is really important, and just and sort of knowing and understanding the history and bringing that forward as well is just, you know, those are all really strong characteristics, and I'm hoping that we can manage to do exactly the same thing. So
you were mentioning how January is the opening date for the physical center. So with the 2021 opening date in mind, what are you most looking forward to as director?
Just just inviting people into the space. Like it's just, we're just finding, we searched so hard. We went to so many buildings and spaces in all different parts of the city. And it was like, oh yeah, that one would work. You know, we could do this or we could do this. And then we walked into this space on Saint Hubert in Montreal, and it was just like, this is it, you know. And so we're ready to, we're getting the floor sanded this week. We're getting ready to paint the walls and clean the windows and open the door and have people come in. And I think, you know, it'll be so wonderful for people to come in and see the space, see the first exhibitions. You know, who knows what's going to happen with COVID and everything like that, but we are really hoping that you know, that we can, you know, even if it's starting out as just small groups of people, but we're really looking forward to having people come into the space. And then of course we're just sort of moving forward in terms of thinking about having people, bigger crowds of people. And we said, oh, this will be really great because we can open the back door and we can open the front door and people can have a glass of wine out at the back, and they can have a, you know, there's a little terrace at the front. And so for openings and vernissages and things like that, we're just really excited. And it'll also be really nice to just have people come in on a, you know, on an evening and just gather around the table, and everybody brings their beading projects with them, and we can just start to sit together and just, you know, talk and just have that sort of natural flow of things happening. And I've got some films that I really want people to see, and you know, I want to be able to bring artists that I know and that, you know, don't get a chance to come to Montreal often enough, to come and talk about their art with us and show their films or talk about what they've written most recently or whatever. So I just want people to come in and see it. I don't want to be the only one there. That's the biggest part of it. And so far I'm usually the only one that's ever there. So that's where we're going with that.
Well, that sounds very exciting, Lori. I'm really looking forward to learning about the center's activities and exhibitions in the future. And yeah, that concludes my questions for you. Thank you so much for speaking with me today. I learned a lot about the motivations and vision behind the center, and I can only expect wonderful things going forward.
Well, yes, and they'll be very happy to have you come to Montreal and visit us too. So, and everyone.
Thank you.